And now we're up to Daf Mem Beis Amid Beis. Bishlema L'Tamin Didan. You know what? According to our Mishnah, even if our Mishnah decides to choose 11 and list them, 11 treifels, it's not an exhaustive list. How do I know it's not an exhaustive list? But there's a shiur, there are other cases, and we'll add the other 11. How do we know that? The Tana udishayr asya b'zaklal, because we have at the end of the Mishnah zaklal, and zaklal we always say is a ribui, and it's coming to indicate that this 18 list of 18 is not an exhaustive list. There are others. But what about the Bryce of Rabbi Shmuel? He counted out 11. I'm sorry, he counted out 18. And when he counted out 18, he meant there are only 18 and not more. V'suleka. And now we have Behema. The base of Behema is the first letter of those four letters, Basger. Behema shenechtechu ragleo min akuva ulamala treifa. So akuva, I believe, in our language, and we'll check this out to make sure we're right, is the knee. And if the animal's back legs were severed from the knee and upwards, from the joint and above, then it's a treifa. Why wasn't this included in the list of the 18 in our Mishnah? And the answer is Savrlei Mishnah holds, Ki Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, Diomar Yecholahi li kavos vilichios. There's a medical procedure that will save the animal by somehow causing the joint to reconnect to the body, right, to the shok. The shok is the next highest point beyond the knee, and it will live. Now, he has a fancy English word, and again, I apologize, I didn't get a chance to look this up. I don't even have a dictionary, but you could look it up on AI if you don't mind. Well, you'll tell me what it means. I'm sure you'll know the word. Likavos. I think likavos means some sort of process by which you mold something, like with heat. You could reline the broken thing. In fancy English, it's called to cauterized. Cauter.
Right. So what they'll do is, like, if you have a bad nosebleed, they use heat and that closes up the blood vessels.
Heat.
Yeah.
So I was right there, cauterizes heat, and it closes up something. It like remolds it, it reattaches it. So we're trying to reattach the severed bone together with the bone that it links up with, from one bone to the other. So that's okay. So we can still maintain the number 18. However, the Gemara says, Afal gav right, let me go. Leman ka'omar, right? Who's the Tana that accepts Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, our Mishnah? Leman ka'omar. You're saying it goes according to Tana Dvei Shmuel. Tana Dvei Shmuel treifa chaya svirale. We want to know, according to the Tana of our Mishnah, the author of our Mishnah holds that a treifa will die before 12 months will pass. We want to know, why didn't we include the case of an animal whose hind leg broke from the knee and above? Don't tell me that it could be that knee could be remolded and categorized. No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying that the animals can live. So therefore, Tanit Be'er Shmuel Treifa Chayas Virale. Ella Sovelak Reb Shimon ben Elazar Diamak Sherehi. We accept the view of Reb Shimon ben Elazar, but for a totally different reason. Reb Shimon ben Elazar holds that the reason why Nechtecha Ragleo Min Akuva etc. is Kshera is because it could be healed. If it wasn't healed through this medicinal application, then it would die. Our Tana holds it's a kshera because it's not going to die. Because even if it will die, it's not a treif. Frek the Gemara. And now we go on to, so 1 second. So what do we have so far? We had a bays. And now I think we're up to a samach, if I'm not mistaken. Va'ika chisaron. Oh, he leaves out the ches of chisaron because ches is coming around the bend. Beshidra. You're missing a piece in the spinal column. Tisnan, we have a Mishnah later on in Hilchas Tumas Mes, meaning that if, let's say, you find only part of a human corpse, you don't find the entire corpse, is there Tumas Ohel or is there not Tumas Ohel? And it depends what's missing from the corpse if it's not a complete corpse. Unfortunately, all this. Anyway. So kama chisaron b'shidra, Beit Shammai omrim shtei chuyos, Beis Hillel omrim chuya achas. Beis Hillel is a machmir. If it's missing, I mean, he's a mekil in all those because he says if it's missing one, what's it called, one vertebrae, then it's not mitame. Why isn't it mitame? The reason why it's not mitame is because it's not going to survive. In other words, you don't really have a corpse. Had it been alive, it would die. So therefore, Beis Hillel in Tumas Mes is a mekil, but in Hilchas Trefos, he's going to be a machmir because he's going to say that if one vertebrae is broken, or I don't know, then it's going to die. If it's going to die, then it's not enough of a corpse to be mitame be ohel. But now we're going to say it's a treifa if it's missing one vertebrae. The omra are you going to betreifa? That's what we just explained. Next. So again, we're stuck with this question that if our Mishnah reflects the shita of Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel, then the deficiency in the spinal column of one single vertebrae would make it into a treifa, and that's number 19. It's not listed in the Mishnah. So the Gemara answers, you know what? We're going to combine two that do appear in the Mishnah, and that reduces the number of the Mishnah to 17, and then we're going to plug in the missing vertebrae, the chisaron and the shidra. And which two are we going to combine? Hem seisu beis hakosach koshavtu lehu betarte. When you calculated 18, you calculated these two stomachs as two different treifos if there was a puncture. And chashvina b'chada. Let's go a different route. Let's call it chada. Why? Because these two work together. They're joined to one another, and we consider them as one unit. So now we're down to 17 in our Mishnah, and now we could fill in the number 18 by adding chulya achas. Frek the Gemara. So again, we did the bet and the samach. Now we're up to the gimel. Va'ika gluda. What about a flayed animal? And this is going to be a major machlokus whether a flayed animal is considered a treifa or not. And the Gemara assumes that Tanit Be'er Shmuel would hold it's a treifa. And now we're jacking it up again to number 19. That's a problem. And the Gemara answers, Reb Meir, the Machshir. Reb Meir holds that a flayed animal is not a treifa. Frek the Gemara, now we're up to the ches of Basgar. Va'ika charusa, a shriveled animal. In other words, the lung itself was shriveled. So now what the Gemara is going to do, pull a fast one, is take out mara. We're going to take out a punctured gallbladder, and we're going to go down to, we have now 19, and and we'll go down to 18, and then we'll jack it up to 19. So we're still in trouble with the number 19. Mara man katodi le Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, apik mara v'ayil charusa. Okay, so even though Rabbi Yossi is of the opinion that a punctured gallbladder is a treifa, we don't accept that shita in our Mishnah, and therefore we subtract 1, and we're okay. Okay, you got away with Pasger, those 4, but what about the 7 of the various Amoroim that taught us the other 7 treifos? And now we're going to go through a list of all 7. Number 1. The Omar of Masna, Hai Buka di Atma Doshaf, Mi Duchte Treifa. Okay, so now we have a picture of the thigh bone when it's in place, and that is attached to the hip bone in this little picture. And now it pops out. And I don't have to tell you this, that now there are medical ways of doing this, of fixing this up even without surgery. They know how to put it back into its place. But according to Rav Basler, it's already a treifa. The top of the thigh bone is called buka, literally a pestle, because it fits into the socket of the hip bone, like a pestle into a mortar. And the Gemara later on Daf Nun Dalid Omid Beis comes to the conclusion that a dislocated thigh bone is a treifa, but only if that sinew that connects it, meaning it connects the thigh, right, the thigh bone with the hip bone, is disintegrated or perforated. Next, number 2. The Omar Rochish Bar Papa Mishmei Derav Loksa Bechulya. Chulya is a kidney, klayot, like today's Hebrew counterpart. Achas, if the animal was diseased in one kidney, it's a treifa. Now, I don't know, this applies to animals. I don't think it applies to human beings, by the way. If both kidneys have become diseased, then for sure it's a treifa. But the chiddush here of Rochish Bar Papa, whose name was always mentioned in the Siyum, is that even if one of the 2 kidneys was diseased, the animal is going to die. Tanan, now we have a third halacha in the Shev Shmait, not from an Amora, but from a Mishnah. In Tanan, nital hatchol kshera. Okay, the tchol is the spleen. If you could live without a spleen, an animal could live without a spleen, the animal is still kosher. Be Omar of Avira, Mishmei derava, lo shanu el nital. Aval nikev treifa. This is so paradoxical. I don't know, I was racking my brains on this. Let's see if you can help me understand it. If the spleen was removed, then the animal is kosher. But if the spleen is still in the body, but it's perforated, it's punctured, then the animal is a treifa. I find that counterintuitive.
So what happens is the spleen a lot of blood will come and you'll die. So what happens when somebody's in an accident, if their spleen is perforated, they've got to remove it because then they can stop the bleeding. If they left it there, they would die from the loss of blood.
Even if it's only nikev. Nikev means, as we said, a masha. Okay, so I guess there's lots of blood in the spleen. By the way, did you ever eat a spleen? I never ate a spleen. And it's kosher. What does it taste like? Omar Rabba Baruch Hanomer. Now we're up to number 4. Simonim shenidaldalu beruban treifa. Right, we keep talking about the 2 simonim. Right, we called it the esophagus and the windpipe, the trachea. And we have to slaughter the 2 simonim. What happens if the animal has dislocated simonim? If the greater part of these 2 simonim are dislocated, I guess they're like hanging somewhere in the animal, but not in its place. They're detached. So then the animal is considered treifa. And now we have 5, 6, and 7, which will round it off. Omar Rabba Bar Shilo, Omar of Masda, Omar Shmuel, Nekra Tsela Meikara treifa. If the rib was uprooted from the base, because we said before that if a rib is broken, we're going to have machlokas Beisil Beit Shammai whether it's a treifa or not. But everybody agrees that if it was nekra and it was uprooted from its base, then it's a treifa. We said that you need to break, more than just one rib. But here, we're talking about a rib that is entirely dislocated. And that makes it into a treifa. Again, this is not necessarily simple stuff that we can say intuitively makes sense, but probably what's happening is, again, I'm just taking a shot at it. Steve, you seem to be the expert here, so tell me if I'm right or wrong, that once the rib is dislocated, it probably has a negative effect on the entire body. Next, Gulgoles Shenechbesa Beruba. Okay, the skull of the animal was crushed. And that's a big chiddush because, we were speaking about the krum hamoach that was detached and so forth. So, but now, let's just see if he adds anything here. Even though no part of the skull is missing, the membranes of the brain have not been punctured, like in the case of krumas hamoach. But nevertheless, the very fact that it was uprooted from its base, I'm sorry, take that back. The very fact that it was crushed in the greater part of it, that makes it into treifa. Number 3, basar achofes rov hakaris berubo. Right, so we call the karis a paunch, which is a kind of a stomach, and the flesh that covers most of the paunch was flawed in the greater part, treifa. So again, let's go back. So we have here in our Mishnah, which reflects Tanit Beis Shmuel, 18 treifos, and we're missing these last 7. So Gemara says, no, these 7 are included in our Mishnah. How so? Nekuve Tamyin Hava. We're going to categorize our Mishnah in a whole different way. Not specific organs that were, what word did I want to use? That were injured. Well, I'll just use that word because I don't remember the word I wanted to use. Okay, injured. But we're talking about a type of injury, and that's called nekev. Remember, nekev, as we said over and over again, is a mashu. And if you calculate, you'll find that amongst the organs that make the animal to a treifa in a nekev mashu, we have 8 all told. So now we're going to collapse those 8 into one. So now we go down from 18 down to 10, and we add 7, the shev shmaitito, to replace it, the ayel shav. So how do we get to number 18? Because we have to add, just 1 second. Yeah, what do we want to add there? The one that we had before. In fact, the Gemara, if you're collapsing all the 8 types of nekuve, then why not collapse the two categories of psuke, which are broken? A severed spinal column, well, we said the thread is also broken, and a severed trachea. It's chashvina b'chad. It's batzelu chada. Now you're going down to 17. The Odin, furthermore, the Rav Avira Mishmei de Rava, which is one of the 7 teachings, that was the case of the spleen, if it wasn't removed or just punctured. And we said, according to Rav Avira, it's a treifa, but nami nekuvi. So you wanted to subtract 7 and then add 7. You can't add 7 because you're subtracting 7 by bringing 2 things together. In the case of Nekuva, bringing 8 things together. Well, together with those 8 things, one of the Shev Shmaitata is a punctured spleen. So basically, we were holding now, I think we're down to 16. Let's just do one more line and then we'll end it. Elahanach tarti the afkas lo tepuk. Right before, the Gemara tried to explain the count of 18 by explaining that Tana de Rabbi Shmuel considers that neither the animal whose leg was severed, which we said could still survive, nor the animal that was flayed are considered treifa. Now we're going to reject that. We're going to accept the majority view instead of the minority view of Reb Shimon ben Elazar and Rabbi Meir. So instead, the Tana de Rabbi Shmuel of our Mishnah agrees with the Chachamim against Reb Shimon ben Elazar, and the animal whose leg was severed is a treifa, and will reject Rabbi Meir, our Tana, and consider the flayed animal to be a treifa. So that's going to add 2 treifos and jack the number up from 16 to 18. Okay, then we're up to Amar Ula, which from Mirza Hashem will pick up tomorrow. Okay, then. Thank you so much for the change in time. Things are going a little bit haywire, but they will settle down back to schedule, Mirza Hashem. And, I need a quick course in treifos, in anatomy, animal anatomy.
So, Rabbi, yesterday when I was at my dentist,
Yeah.
he says,
You getting crowned?
Yeah, I